the video of the Ukrainian woman, the 23-year-old Ukrainian woman getting stabbed on the train. And I have the belief that more and more people are mentally unhealthy and more people are mentally unstable, even the ones that think they are. And more people are frustrated, and for whatever reason. And I think so we're gonna see whether we're gonna see this all over the world, but especially we're seeing this now play out in North America and Europe. And I feel like a lot of parts of Europe and a lot of parts of North America are becoming a real shit show. Like seriously, like. And it's clear to me that I think that there will be a movement for more punishment. A little bit like the punishment of the woman that was caught with the 50 gram of cocaine in Dubai. I think we're going to see a lot more harsh punishments in the near future, and I think it's going to stay because I don't see how people become more healthy mentally. I think it's even going to get worse. And a lot of people that are trying to help, like Robert Kennedy Jr., they are being, pushed aside for big pharma, for money and all of that stuff. So it's definitely gonna get a lot worse, and it's gonna get, even more dystopian, especially as you bring in migrants also into Europe, or all kinds of demographic changes, and the inability to realize that there's also different cultures around things. I think we're going to see everything escalating. And so I'm a huge proponent of, actually, if you can manage it and afford it, to move off grid and to basically create a new life, like basically like we used to live, but with new modern technology, like you have the solar panels and stuff. And because and I met a family like that who lives in the mountains just 2 days ago. And I think this is the way to go for the future, because the cities will become unbearable. The cities will become unbearable. And it's sad because oftentimes you cannot choose. You can, like, let's say you move from one country to another country, like the family of the Ukrainian girl. You don't have that many options. You cannot say like, oh, we're going to live like this or we're going to live like that. The fact even that she was, I think, working at a pizza place, they needed to survive somehow. They needed to make money somehow. Yeah. So it's an absolute tragedy, but I think it's going to get more and more and more and more. Because I see that people are literally becoming ever more mentally ill and sick. And not just specific people, but it's across the board. And so I don't blame when people are more suspicious of others, when they are more careful about others. You remember this thing with the baseball, where the guy took the baseball, gave it to the kid, and then came like the Karen mom. And it seems like people are really bonkers. Like it's really getting crazy. And actually, that reaction by that dad was super smart. A lot of people won't understand what I'm saying because they will be like, "Oh, he was weak," and it looks like weak, but it's not weak. It's actually being very smart, because you realize that people are becoming really crazy, and it's better to not engage with them a lot of times. And it's sad for society, but that's the way we're going. As a spiritual healer, as someone who's highly sensitive, who feels things other people don't feel, I'm telling you, people are getting crazier. Sometimes in this new society, even in Europe, I was like, maybe it's me, maybe I changed so much. But I realized actually what changed is my perception of reality got more fine-tuned, And I think by that I see that people got crazier. They judge quicker. They get into anger much quicker. Depends, of course, where you are. I mean, the inner cities are the worst, you know. And this is, as a European, I can say it's happening here in the big cities just as much. And of course, the United States has a totally different set of problems than Europe. But in general, you can see that there is like a general increase in mental deranged people. Definitely. And I personally try to avoid the cities, but I have a lifestyle where I can do this. But it's a clear decision. I could even go purposefully into cities, but I'm saying like, nah, no, fuck that. I'm staying as much in nature as I can. And usually the real healthy people nowadays, the real, like, are the younger families staying on the countryside, trying to build, off grid. Because the shit show is gonna be real. Like, once, right now you feel like there's still some control, in the sense like when something like this happens, you have police. Something like this happens, you have someone who can help the victim if there's still time. All of these things. But what happens when artificial intelligence wins and when everybody's unemployed? Where will the money come from? How do you think the debt is going to be paid? Of your your regional government and your federal government and all of that stuff. It's all going to collapse. A lot of them are going to collapse. And I think the best kind of like countries or regions are going to be the ones that have been used to live through harsh times for a long time, even in the last, let's say, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, where they're accustomed to living through harsh times and not having much money. And there you will survive. But in the big cities, forget about it. So the tragedy is that if it would have been a rich Ukraine family, they would have gotten a nice house, she wouldn't have had to work in the pizza place and so forth. And be around people that basically don't. No, I wanted to say something else, because I know it's going to sound cowardly, but nowadays, this kind of like courage in these situations is very hard, because honestly, as a white guy, if I'd been on the same train, and I would have been afraid of the situation a lot. I would have tried to leave as fast as possible, and I would have probably not been in the position to help her. I would have definitely called like police, but I don't think I would have, done anything. And I think 99% of people are like that. And sometimes you have these like selfless helpers, but that's a specific type of person, and it's really like a hero type of person. But the problem is that nowadays, with the crazies running around all over the place, what are you gonna do? Like, what are you gonna do against a knife? So somebody who's crazy, who's running around with a knife. I mean, I've seen it in. And you basically, you can just keep your distance. You cannot close in, because unless you're like a master of something, I don't know, like pulling a gun or something. And I do think there's a lot of hate in general. So I think there's a lot of women hating men, a lot of whites disliking blacks, a lot of blacks hating whites. But that's, honestly, I think it's a little bit of a phenomenon in America. I think in Europe, there isn't that much. There's more like avoidance rather than hate, where I feel in America there's a lot of hate. It seems like, from across the pond, it seems a little bit like that. So, yeah, and he purposefully chose her in that train. It's not by, coincidence. The violence seems so brutal and so intense that you could even think that it was created for political purposes, which I think is unlikely, but you never know, you know. Um, I mean, the deep state has done all kinds of shady stuff, so you never know. You never 100% know. But I also felt very like I think it's not that, you know, there's been a lot of violence everywhere in Ukraine, in a lot of cities, wherever. So it's not that much different from any other harsh crime. But what's here is that it's very that the videos are released, so it's very graphic. It's very clear what was going on. Because most videos, we don't have a clear idea of what was really going on. So you kind of have like a second or two, and you cannot judge the situation. Whereas this is long enough for you to be able to completely judge what was going on, especially because she was extremely passive doing her thing. And it was clear also that she was hiding under the glasses, under, you know, the cap, the hat, in order to not call to herself much attention. And probably that's also an advice she probably got from her mother or from friends, like, have those glasses on, and because she didn't wear glasses on Instagram, so it was definitely to kind of hide and not be, you know, paying too much, you know, creating too much attention. And so that's, I think, another reason why she was completely shocked, because on one hand she was on the telephone, but on the other hand she was like really trying to mind her own business. And yeah, so that's super, super, super intense. And the shock must have been like absolutely insane. Yeah. I mean, everybody knows like what it's like after work like this to ride a train, commute and stuff, and then something like this happens. That's really crazy. Yeah. So from I can speak from my side as a spiritual awakened, you know, kind of like coach. I do see a lot of crazy and more anger and mentally ill people the more time goes on. It has to do with society and these bubbles, people getting the wrong support, being influenced by social media, these kind of bubbles in which mentally ill people live. Because, you know, if you're mentally ill, you are going to find a bubble for yourself on the internet where you can, you know, live out your fantasies or inform yourself about your fantasies or get involved even more. So let's say you are thinking of killing someone, let's say from a certain race, then it's easy to go on the internet and find other people with the same ideas in forums. And I think that's how the idea keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. And if you're mentally ill, or if there's more, you know, mental problems, then you will be very tight in that bubble. You won't have any other support system which will help you to get out of it, whatever. And so I see this definitely becoming stronger. And as people struggle more to not be able to find jobs, to not, you know, governments not being able to handle these situations, it's definitely going to get worse. And I definitely have a feeling that anger is becoming ever stronger. And on the social media, you see it like intensely. If you go onto X, I'd say 80% is just hate posts. You know, people disliking what someone else posts and insulting them. It's really intense. And the same goes for a lot of YouTube content. You see it in the comments, a lot of hate all the time. Especially the young people are so hateful. Like it wasn't like that, 20 years ago. I'm a little bit older, so I'm over 40 years old, so I know how it was in the beginning. But I have to say that this kind of racial hate, that was always there. That never left, from both sides. That was, yeah. And it also comes back to entitlement. I think that when you feel entitled to something, that's like thieves and thugs and people who and robberies and and fatal, stabbings. It's all connected to kind of like a sense of entitlement, that you're supposed to have like a better life than the other person, and that they're like taking away. It's the same like in certain regions when they say, if people from outside come, oh, they're taking our jobs, something like that. It's basically the idea of being entitled to something just because of XYZ. And sometimes it's very delusional. Like, I'm supposed to receive money although I don't like working, for example, So that's happening a lot. And I think it has to do with social media as well. I think it has to do with seeing people who live like lavish lifestyles and everybody is, and you feel that your opportunity was taken because you didn't, because you were segregated or someone was racist to you or whatever, And that's just gonna increase. That's just gonna increase until people realize they're all in the same boat when artificial intelligence takes over. But then then it will be like purge time. The thing is, I truly believe that we'll have a dystopia, massive dystopia, and it will feel like the Purge, the movie. It will be horrific. I mean, you don't have to look far. Argentina, Venezuela, when there wasn't anything, they did a lot of crazy stuff, and yeah. I think it's unique to America that they immediately make this a massive racial problem. But I do understand also that when social media is allowing more transparency to who's committing the crime, how the crime's being committed, and so forth, that people become wary. I do understand that, and I think that the fact also that X is a news platform where you can inform yourself, where before you couldn't. And news wouldn't report certain things or wouldn't report it at all. And on X you can really find out what's going on. I think that allows for people to get mad that certain narratives were buried. And now that they're more visible, and I think as long as Elon Musk is the owner of X and runs it, we'll definitely see more of that, like the inability to hide, the real truth. And even like the video I first saw on X, it's the number one news platform now, definitely, and. The thing is also that if the racial conflict becomes the centerpiece of anger and divide in the US, then I could imagine that it escalates, because America is in this kind of like where that question and that situation is very loaded in general, and it always has been. Um, I think in Europe it would be more like, okay, let's stop illegal immigration, and that's it basically. But I don't think that there is a big, racial question in Europe. It doesn't. It has a different, just has a different history, a different vibe. By the way, as a spiritual teacher, if someone asks me, how to deal with certain situations, I give you the advice, the best advice, and it's always worked for me. Never confront, always leave. Never confront, always leave. And if you don't feel comfortable, this is something a lot of people have trouble with, but it's actually a very good survival strategy, is if you don't feel comfortable, don't feel uncomfortable to leave. Don't feel uncomfortable to change. Sometimes in a train, if I don't like the person, even if I know they're not going to do something harsh, but I just don't like the vibe of the person, the energy, I'll just get up and sit somewhere else. Feel more free without feeling, pressured by social, constraints or whatever. Just get up and sit somewhere else. If she had gotten up and went to a different part of the train, it would have never happened. So always feel free to leave. You're not, I'm looking for the English word, you're not obligated to explain yourself to anyone. You're a free person. You're not living in jail. You're not obligated to explain yourself to strangers. Just get up and leave. You could even, if you don't feel comfortable, just get out of the train completely, take the next train, whatever, or just completely change the wagon. It doesn't matter. Nobody even cares. Everybody's in their kind of like in their bubble. And sometimes, like, if I were, say, I'm just saying, like, I'm not trying to make this racial, just for YouTube's sake, the wokeness of YouTube moderators. So, but I'll say, like, whatever situation I'm in, if I don't feel comfortable, I'll just change. And like I say, if I do it in Europe, it's probably it's a white guy sitting next to me, for example. I just don't feel comfortable, I'll just get up. Sometimes I do it even when there's just loud people or someone, obnoxious or whatever. I just do it all the time. And understand also that you don't have to be like, especially like woke and be like, no, I'm just gonna sit here and be like, just because the person seems mentally ill or something, I'm gonna sit here because I want to be inclusive. Just fuck that. Just get up and leave. And that shows you also another thing, which I think is a very, very, very important clue. Of course, when you come from work, you don't think about this, but don't put your back to people. It's just, let's add a little bit of street smartness to it. So even if it's more energy, even if it costs more energy, because you're already tired from work or something, don't leave your back to people. That's the best way, is always to sit in the corner of somewhere so you see what's going on. But to be honest, probably, I think a lot of people don't change the train just because of what I said before. I think it's because they're like, I don't think they're trying to downplay. Like, I think it's more like, I don't wanna feel such and such person to change the train, or I don't want to feel such and such by acting this way. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody really gives. You don't know these people. And it's not like you're offending them. You're just, making a decision for yourself. And it's sad. that society is that way, but you're not living in a pueblo. You're not living in a small village. You're living in a big city where there's a lot of fucked up people. You know, and that's what I love about van life. I'm mostly in nature and just park next to, you know, people that are already retirees. Yeah. So, and it's I think that woman was so 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 vulnerable that I think that really bothers people a lot. But to be quite honest, like if she had the typical, you know, Ukrainian Instagram, and that's unrelated to, you know, what she experienced, but I would be like, oh my god, another one of those, you know. Um, the the Ukrainian Instagrams and the modern young girl Instagrams, those are like, you cannot watch them. I mean, there's enough Sims who watch that stuff, but you know. But unrelated to that, of course, the incident is absolutely tragic. Um, and of course, if you're trying to escape a certain life in a war zone, you're gonna take whatever you can get. But I think, you know, Czech Republic, my country, which I'm originally from, they took like 400,000 Ukraine people. So yeah, you know, but some people think that there's more opportunity going to the States than, you know, to other countries in Europe when fleeing the war. And it's probably true in a way, but it used to be true probably. I don't think that America now is much better than any other place in the US. I think it was in the 80s, 90s. There was a lot of the, you know, the tech boom, the dot-com bubble, and some other stuff that was really interesting. I think 2025, the US has nothing special to offer, you know. We, as children, when we were teenagers, I remember very well, everybody looked up to the US, like jeans, Air Jordans, California lifestyle, celebrities, Hollywood, and all of that is completely gone. Even the image of Hollywood completely gone. Like who wants to be a celebrity now out of Hollywood? You want to be a social media influencer maybe, but definitely not one of those, you know, pedo kind of part of that pedo kind of thing or whatever they're doing there. And all that fake wokeness and in the movies and stuff. And then you have the whole, I think also the kind of like the sports culture is a little bit gone. It's not the same as it used to be. I think it's much more soccer now for a lot of people, but all this ideal of like basketball and all that stuff and how it was cool, I think that's mostly gone. I don't think it's that strong anymore. For us Europeans, at least. So I think the allure of American culture is mostly gone. And then you only see the conflicts coming out of America. I think people are not that naive anymore. And even like teenagers, if they see something on X, what's happening in the US, and then how strange everything is, they're like, it's not a place I want to go. They're more like, I want to go surfing in Portugal or Bali or I don't know, travel to Australia. USA is not a travel destination anymore where people are like, I definitely want to go there. Like, what are you gonna sell, you know, Disneyland and Disney World? Who cares? You know? So I think that changed a lot. I think that really changed a lot. And then if stuff like this comes out where you don't feel safe on the train, like, why the fuck would you go there? You know? I think that that it shifted a lot, and you can see also that on Instagram, people are trying to get more to nice places like, I don't know, Mexico, Bali, Thailand, maybe Philippines, some adventurous people to Vietnam, somebody maybe to India or something, or travel. A lot of Americans want to travel to Portugal, to Spain, but I don't see many people talking about they want to go to America. I remember back then people were like, oh, I definitely want to see New York, I definitely want to see this, and I'm hearing it much, much less, or not at all. And I have a feeling that that kind of thing is it's not really coming back, because America is not going to get better, even under Trump. It's going to get worse. It's just structurally, it's fucked up. And I think it really, COVID caused a lot of it, because a friend of mine said it in a way which I really liked. It's like the COVID jab was a little bit like agreeing to your body being raped, or raping yourself. It's a little bit it's a little bit similar in that sense. And I think it's very, once you did that, there is some psychological mechanism where you kind of hate yourself. You're not in that loving position. I trust my body, I trust the universe, I trust, but suddenly you trust the people that didn't even have long-term studies, and you trusted the government. You basically gave up your autonomy. And I think that resonates, that kind of vibration resonates through all of the world right now, and that increases the anger even more. Because you're in a way angry to yourself, but of course you're not going to blame yourself because you're not conscious enough, so you blame everyone else. And so you blame whites, you blame blacks, you blame, government, whatever. But it's actually you who is responsible for taking it, and for following all of that narrative. I mean, you always had the option. You could always say, nah. In most countries, it wasn't mandatory. You felt obligated to take it, but it wasn't mandatory in most countries in the world. For example, in Portugal, where 97% are jabbed, it wasn't mandatory, but they did a good, job in selling this. And the reason why I'm saying all these things is because I'm trying to paint a picture of what I think is mentally going on with people, and how that also affects everything else. And of course, you can talk about that specific case where you say, okay, this guy was 13 times already, had some history. And then there was this interesting press conference where there was a policeman who said that, usually before a homicide is committed, there's already like enough crimes being committed by that same person before committing a homicide. And that makes it clear that these people are not, they shouldn't be roaming around for free, free, if they have done so many wrong things. And I think, of course, in that sense, I don't think Trump is wrong. In that sense, like the kind of woke or leftist kind of like culture is just, sent them again on the street, But America is in such a weird position because it already has so many people in prison. It's really weird. It's like really weird society. A lot of people don't realize that America has the largest prison population in the world, I believe. Or one of the top, 5 or 3. I think it's the number one. It has the largest prison population in the world. Think about this. So the supposedly most free society in the world, where there's the most opportunity in the whole world, where the American dream still lives, everyone is fucking prison. What the fuck is that? I think that this kind of naivete, I think it's going away because people can, inform themselves and read and learn, which before wasn't that possible. I mean, American high school is you don't learn anything there, like literally nothing. And but now you can, in a lot of ways, inform yourself on the internet, and AI is getting better. So I notice myself, there's AI, especially since the last versions of GPT and Grok and all, it's really starting to positively affect my life in a lot of ways. By the way, one really cool thing is if you are driving and you have AI placed, like AI voice, instead of talking to AI and telling it stuff, ask AI to ask you questions about your life, and make it keep asking questions. It's very interesting to start reflecting. So it's like it's as if you had a 1 hour session of someone constantly asking you really interesting questions about your life. It's like, if you could have anything you wanted, what would it be? If you could tell your little self, an advice that you would definitely should take, all that you need, and you can do this for an hour, and it really allows you to reflect on a lot of stuff that you haven't even thought about for a long time, or ever. That's side advice. So spiritually, if we want to go even more meta and go like metaphysical, what's going on spiritually? Because a lot of people are like, no, this is good, where there's bad, there's like demons and these people, it's not a race issue, and it's more like a spiritual war. Okay, let me answer to that. Let me go into my intuition. We're in the time where you need to do lifestyle design. You need to make purposeful decisions for self-love and for creating the life that you want, because it's becoming ever more possible, as long as AI doesn't take over all the jobs. So until then, you have a lot of flexibility to design your life. And by lifestyle design, I mean you think about how you want to live, and then you use the options that you have with the technology to create that life. And I think if you don't do that, you automatically, by default, and this is also what Andrew Tate says, although I'm not a fan of him, like I said, that's what he says. By default, you become a slave to the system. And while the Ukrainian family didn't have really much of an option, because they probably came with very little money, and they have to survive somehow, they basically chose a city or a place which obviously in the end was a problem for her. And lifestyle design is basically looking at all your options and picking the one that is most related to how you want to live in the future, or what your dream is. So of course, as a refugee, you don't have that many options. But if I had options, I was like, okay, I have all these countries that I can go to. Which one is the most related to the way I want to live? And to be honest, Czech Republic, me coming from the Czech Republic, knowing the Czech Republic, and knowing that they're a little bit like the Polish people in that sense, with an Orban from Hungary, is like, right now, those are probably one of the best places in the world to be in. You're just going to be super safe. Even like STDs and stuff, it's in, those countries are super safe, because STDs are exploding among young women all over the world. So, and if you go to the United States and you start to sleep with men, you're probably gonna get some nasty STD in comparison, to Eastern European countries, except for Ukraine, which has very high HIV rate. But it's like at 1% or something. A lot of people don't know that. It's from past drug use and some other things that went on in that country. And that's also one example why it's possible that a lot of these COVID biotech kind of companies and research companies were in the Ukraine. Enough access to HIV people and experimenting with that. But there's many reasons, not just that, but it's just a side note. So if you think like, for example, as a Ukraine person, you could have easily went to Czech Republic. So you could say a lot of them do because either there's like Russians or Ukrainians already living in Czech Republic. So you would have instantly found friends, whatever. And like we know, Ukrainians and Russians are very close. So it's not like they're enemies when they see each other. Actually, they're friends. It's Putin who has this kind of idea that, that they're enemies now. And the West, of course. I'm not both of them. So if you had these options, I would go to Czech Republic instead of the United States. I mean, why would you go into a big city in the United States? In Czech Republic, you're definitely not going to get stabbed on the train. That's definitely not happening. In Poland as well, and Hungary as well. It's not going to happen. Crime rates are super low. It's like Portugal is also super safe. A lot of Ukrainians tried to go to Portugal. I don't know if they're still there. I saw a lot of Ukrainian plates also at the time where they were like trying to escape the whole thing. Yeah, I wouldn't go to the US. This is interesting. Even if you paid me, at what point would I go to the United States? How much would you have to pay me money? I was like literally, how much would you have to pay me money for me to go and live in the United States? For like, let's say someone said like, you have to live in the United States for the next 20 years. How much money? Honestly, it's almost like it doesn't matter how much money. I don't think I will go. And maybe 200 million upwards. I wouldn't go for $1 million. I wouldn't go to the United States. Not even for 5. Maybe 200, 500 million. Because then I would buy a huge fucking ranch somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Have a couple dogs and horses and shit. But that, just so you understand, for me as a, I had that spiritual awakening. I was a professional tantra master for 1,000 women. I had many interesting experiences. And still, I wouldn't go. No, actually, all those experiences made me realize, like, when Neo in Matrix starts to see the code, I think it was the code. No, it starts to see like reality or something, and for what it is, it's like I see reality for what it is. So there's like nothing that pulls me to the United States. There's literally nothing. There's nothing there where I would like, oh, I'm going because of the women, or I'm going because of, the weather, or I'm going because of the culture, or I'm going because of the food. There's literally nothing. And if I think about the food, I think it would have to be more than 200 million. You have to import everything. Or if you have your own ranch, you have your own food. Yeah, that's the thing. Like with 200 million, you can basically have your own food, everything. Just people helping you with that stuff. And that says a lot. Like if you gave me, and then let's pick another country just for comparison, to Portugal. How much would you have to pay me to go to Portugal? 2 million would be fine. 3 million would be fine. How much to go to Mexico? 10 million would be nice. Costa Rica, 3 million. Thailand, 2 million. Africa, anywhere in Africa, 2 billion. Yeah. And it's interesting to think about all kinds of problems in life from different, angles and perspectives. And yeah, like this just shows me like America has nothing that I would love to be. And a lot of people, a lot of expats or people who leave the US for, Portugal or Spain or some other countries in the world, especially single guys also when they go to Mexico, to South America, they're extremely happy. They're very happy. Very few people are not happy. I mean, the problem with Americans is they export their culture, think their culture is the best, but it's not really a culture. It's just obnoxious, loud people. Americans are mostly obnoxious, loud people for foreigners. If you see them anywhere, and it's interesting because I did hear a couple of Americans in where was it, in was it Portugal or south of Spain? And this is interesting. So I usually am able to speak to anyone on the street if I want to. But when I see Americans, like American girls traveling around, I don't feel like I want to talk to them. And I met some girls in Tarifa, and I also recognized that they were like, instead of, back then, this is a problem with young people. Back then, people were interested in each other. They're like, oh, where are you from? Oh my God, this is so interesting. And especially also if you talk to older people, so that's the generation that, came from that generation. They're like, oh, where are you from? This is so interesting. What do you do? And so forth. And young people are just trying to avoid all kinds of like contacts, except for when these contacts are very like, if the guy's super good looking or the girl that they're meeting is like, oh my God, we're going to this party tonight, you come. But it's not like this general interest in people is completely gone. They're super wary and they have a lot of hate towards everyone. It's really strange. It's like, who are you? Like, what do you want? It's really weird. Like, why are you traveling if you have that mindset? You just want to make a couple of Instagram pictures for your friends back home and then pretend that, living a free life. It's really weird. Like, that's what I'm saying, guys. I mean, I'm 47, so I see it. The people are getting really weird. Like, where do you think this hate is coming from? They're getting really weird. And I'm usually not the type of guy who likes to talk a lot about negative things. I'm a very optimistic, happy kind of person. So when negative things happen, I usually don't talk about them. But I said, this is such a brutal crime, and this is such a strange crime. And it's typical of what's going on right now. And it doesn't matter if it's an illegal immigrant in Paris or if it's, someone in mentally ill in the United States. It seems like I don't know how it's with mass shootings, like school shootings in the US, if they've like increased. I think they have, I'm not sure. But it's kind of conflicting because a lot of times they say that actually crime is going down. But I think that statistic is always behind and also skewed. I personally don't feel safe in most cities, whether in Europe or somewhere else. Because cities are the perfect place for strange people to lurk in the shadows of the city. In the village, everybody knows the strange guy. You know, in the city, you're just anonymous, can do whatever you want. I was hiking yesterday with my best friend here, and we went through a small village here in Basque country in north of Spain. And it was interesting because there was a very small village, and it really felt like comfy. It felt like it was really like, so that you could live here. It's very, very nice. It was maybe 1,000, 2,000 people. It was super nice. It's not far from, bigger cities, and you feel like it was idyllic, and you could sense like there's a sense of like calmness to it, and that's so refreshing, And if you see like news like what you just saw, and then you have, then you're in a region like this, and you're like, great. I feel a certain tension that people are really, that builds up in them, in the Americans that are seeing and reading these kind of, news stories. And that tension that kind of like racial tension is definitely building up. You can sense it, 100%. I think it comes back to what Tate says. If you want to do lifestyle design, it really comes back to what Andrew Tate says. You only have a few years left to make yourself financially independent and create the lifestyle design you want. After that, it's finished, and you will be completely fucked in the big cities when artificial intelligence takes over all the jobs. And it doesn't matter which big city, it will be all the same. And today I'm going to make a video about toxic metaframing, so I'll just post that as an upload. And check out that, subscribe to the channel, put on your notification bell, because that video is going to be eye-opening. Okay, so see you soon.